Pulsar Modular has managed to build quite a fanatic and loyal following, and that made the creation of Fairuz possible. This new plugin was funded by the Leap of Faith program of Pulsar Modular, where customers can buy a plugin before it releases without having much info at all. It's sort of a Kickstarter program that gives Pulsar Modular the funding and trust to develop an idea further. Now, Fairuz by Pulsar Modular is an equalizer with saturation, and this is far from something special or unique by itself. Pulsar Modular claims that this plugin will bring out the natural resonance and richness of the instrument you are EQing. Even at extreme boosts or cuts, the integrity of the sound is maintained, and uses very colorful and semi-deep references in the promo of this plugin, which are borderline cringe and also borderline red flag to me. Fairuz really is a piece of equipment, an equalizer to be exact. You use it to reduce or increase a part of the frequency spectrum. This plugin uses a fixed Q, which is a fixed width of the frequency spectrum. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it does mean that it is somewhat restricted in functionality. You better hope that the width and its frequency curve are well chosen and sound good, and yes, with Fairuz that is the case. There are 3 different types of curves per band, and these have very interesting curves. You get a bell, well, that is nothing special, but the other 2 have much more interesting curves, which you could best compare with something like Pultec type high frequency curves. You boost the frequency, and in the frequencies below that boost you get a dip, and vice versa. In general, this will give very smooth results. You boost and also slightly reduce more obnoxious frequencies below. In practice, I found myself boosting slightly higher than I normally would to take advantage of that lower dip. I do it like this. On this guitar, I want more high end. Now I go slightly higher with the frequency and adjust the boost. This gives a very smooth, natural high-end boost for this acoustic guitar. I rarely used this plugin for dipping frequencies. Now I can basically easily recreate this curve with any proper parametric EQ plugin, as you can see here with FabFilter Pro Q3. If you now listen to this, you hear that it's the guitar in mono. But on the left side I have Fairuz and on the right side I have Pro Q3. The difference is very little to say the least. When I phase invert one of them, I am left with this. You hear it's not a completely perfect cancellation. I needed to offset one of the tracks by one sample to get a better matching phase inversion. But the biggest difference comes from turning down both the low pass and tremor circuit. Now both plugins basically perfectly phase cancel each other. And I could repeat this with other bands as well. That means that the EQ of Fairuz is pretty much clean. The high-pass filter and tremor circuits are basically tuned EQ curves as well. The only exception is the high-band EQ. It adds a bit of harmonic behavior when you play with the dials, even when the band is turned off. Now before we dive in more, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and leave a like. This video is sponsored by DistroKid. Cover songs is probably one of the many types of songs you would love to do, but uploading to a streaming platforms is always a hassle due to copyrights and required fee because you cover an original song. DistroKid makes this very easy for you by offering the option to do this all for you for $12 per song per year when you have a DistroKid subscription. Use my link in the description to get 7% off of your first year on a DistroKid. Back to Fairuz. With all these clean EQ curves which can be recreated fairly easily, doesn't mean that Fairuz doesn't have a use. Of course it has. With Fairuz I got a guitar sound in 30 seconds. What you saw was in real time. I recreated that curve in Pro Q3 in about a minute. If I would have to dial in that from scratch, that would have taken me at least twice as long and probably even longer. What you will use really depends on what you like and prefer. Now, there is saturation happening in this plugin. Enabling the hammer button adds even more harmonics, and the voice dial controls those as well. The EQ feeds into this saturation. As far as I can judge, it's really added on top. That means you can use the EQ to shape the saturated sound. If you go for the EQ only and are comfortable with working with a parametric EQ like FabFilter Pro Q3 or even the stock EQ in your DAW, I wouldn't recommend Fairuz. If you need a tool to dial in a sound without overthinking too much, Fairuz could be the perfect workflow for you, and of course you get the added saturation on top. But I don't think Fairuz is very special and deserves the level of hype it gets from the Pulsar Modular community. But try it out for yourself.